every time we really put it together on the defensive end, it was more attributable to the fact that we showed incredible resilience, fought through injuries the way we did, which is something I think we're really proud of, quite frankly, but it never really coalesced in winning basketball. And that's what we're here to do. So I'm really, really disappointed that we are in this situation. We did not intend, certainly, to miss the playoffs. That's not our goal in any way, shape, or form. I think there are a lot of reasons for what happened, but primary to those, if you look throughout the course of our season, injuries or not, there are three fundamental issues that this team needs to address moving forward. And that's going to happen on our level off the court, but it's going to be top to bottom organizationally. And it's going to be built into the player development programs as well. We've got to address our basketball IQ, our toughness, and our shooting. And I think those three things really revealed themselves in the fact that while we were talented enough to build double-digit leads, we also blew more double-digit leads than any team in the league. We had double-digit leads 14 times in games we didn't finish. We were 2-11 in games decided by 3 points or less. Those are things that you cannot do to be a winning basketball team. Again, there are reasons for that. We are a very young, developing team. We did not have players that, while they have incredible talent, we don't have the winning medal yet. And we know that to some degree. We know this is a process and it takes time. But we also have to take a look at ourselves, both front office, coaching, players. Is what we're doing working? Are we doing enough for the group to be accretive to winning? And that's really what our focus is going to be. The level of accountability we're going to hold everyone to is all about winning. We've already shown we are an incredibly talented group of young men. We've got 2 All-Stars, 23 and younger, in Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. That's something very few teams can say they have. We've got really high character quality veterans around them. We have players that want to do the right things. We have young players that are about the right stuff. And what we need to do, and this is exciting for me, I think the injuries really slowed us, but we're not slowing down off the court. This is when we get to really put the pedal to the metal and build this team in a way that makes sustained success possible. We need to make the pieces fit a little bit better. I think you all could see that this was a rather wonky group at times for Coach. We didn't have enough shooting for him to play versatile lineups. We didn't have enough attention to detail. And because there weren't really any 5-on-5 practices, and I can't explain what that really means to people that aren't really basketball fans, but when you're not getting to address on a daily basis the things you do wrong as a young team and actually work on those things, it makes the coach's job almost impossible. I felt like Coach Van Gundy and his staff, they only had 2 weeks to get ready for training camp with the season starting as quickly as it did. 2 weeks together as a staff to even put their hands around this group. It took us much longer to find rotations that work, by way of example, than it would have if we were playing 5-on-5 in practice and players could reveal themselves. One of the things that I think really stands out to me is that we were number 1 in the league in games lost due to injury or COVID. And that's even accounting for the huge onslaught of injuries at the end of the season. And a big part of that was because Aaron Nelson and his team did a truly remarkable job on the testing side, on the education front. We became the first fully vaccinated team in the NBA in large measure because of their efforts. He and Tom Maystat really did a remarkable job. But at the same time, I think even in that area of health and performance, we can do better. We've got to do better from a strength and conditioning standpoint. I think the toughness issue that I mentioned to you before, a lot of that is fatigue makes cowards of us all. And because we weren't able to really address those things in a way that makes sense for young players, we weren't able to grow in the way we needed to. And I think that was very evident. I would say ultimately that this one season here really felt like one very long season going back to when the bubble took place. Everything that happened beginning with the bubble until now made it very challenging for a young team to find its footing and for a new coaching staff to find its footing. And that's in large measure while we're here. It's not where we're going to stay. I'm very, very excited about what we can do moving forward, and I'm frankly really looking forward to getting to the work of doing it because, as I said, this is where we get to really enjoy the game of basketball and enjoy putting a team together. I think, like many of you who are now sitting in front of me without masks, we are all incredibly grateful that we've turned the corner as a country. I think New Orleans has turned the corner. I'm excited by the fact that festival season is going to correspond with the start of basketball season next year. I can't wait to see what this city really looks like in its full splendor, and I can't wait to have fans back in the building. Because it's one thing I can tell you, it makes a big difference to sharpen focus in young players to have the Smoothie King Center rocking like it was in February of last year, and we're really excited about getting back to it. So with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Hey, Griff, Christian Clark here. A lot of individual improvement from your young guys over the course of the season. As a front office, how do you balance, letting them to continue to come along at their own pace and develop organically versus pressing down on the gas pedal and, using some of the resources you have at your disposal?
Well, I think a big part of what took place, and in some instances, this is because of injuries. I'll use Najee Marshall as an example. So while we never had a COVID case in a year and a half with the team, Najee, prior to signing with us, was home away from the team and was tested positive for COVID. So he didn't get to participate in the start of training camp. So here's a two-way player who didn't get to be in the 5-on-5 work in training camp. The coaches didn't see him at all. And until we were in a situation where he had to play basketball, there was no way for him to build trust with his players and the coaching staff. I think he made the absolute most of that opportunity. But oftentimes young players just need opportunity. And if there is a silver lining to what happened to us from an injury perspective, Christian, it's that those young kids got a lot of time. We got to see what a lot of those kids are capable of, and we're going to continue to grow and develop with them. Because in order to build sustained success, we're going to need to do something very similar to what other teams have done in similar situations. When Seattle, Oklahoma City was first building the way they were, when Golden State built the way they did, you keep a young core and nucleus together, and you let it learn how to win together. So what we're not going to do is overreact and give up on the nucleus. What we have to do is support the nucleus the right way. And your next question is going to be, who is the nucleus? We're going to identify that, and we're going to build the nucleus to be what fits our two best players and what makes it possible for them to succeed at the highest levels. Because in our league, when your stars are playing well and your stars are surrounded by the right fit and the right pieces that are accretive to winning, that's when you really make an impact. And I think you've seen we've got several young rotational players who can be part of that, and we need to figure out exactly what everyone's role needs to be within it.
Yeah, what's up, Griff? You mentioned the blown double-digit leads this season, and the struggles with closing games. Of course, some of that is just younger guys getting older and mature is a way to fix that. But how do you guys in the front office address that issue that was something that ongoing throughout the season?
Well, I think one thing that was significant was leading into this season, Will, we had a 2-week transaction window. Ordinarily in an offseason, you have a 20-week transaction window. So we were trying to do basically all of the work in a tenth of the time. That's very complicated. So there are issues related to fit of the pieces that we'll be able to address. And part of that's going to be in the way that we procure talent. Part of that's going to be in the way we assess talent. Perhaps some of that will be this draft pick. Perhaps our draft pick will go to work for us in finding another veteran piece who has more of that winning mettle. We're in a situation where there's a world of optionality available to us. The pick assets we have give us incredible flexibility. And because we have a young group that is, quite frankly, most of them on rookie scale, and other players that we're very high on, we've secured for multiple years at affordable numbers, we're going to be able to be aggressive if the right fit exists for us, Will. So I think you could see us do virtually anything in that space.
Hey, Griff. There was a lot of, I think, maneuvering around this year with trying to stay under the luxury
luxury tax. This has not been a team who has paid the luxury tax before. Is that something that is on the table moving forward, or does it kind of go with when you have a competitive team, that's when that becomes something on the table?
Yeah, so I think if there was something that I would have done differently in the way things came together from an execution standpoint, it was getting that close to the tax to begin with. We did a lot of things to avoid the tax. That wasn't something that was being asked of us. It was something where we just didn't want to start our clock. I think this organization and ownership team has been very clear with us, Mrs. Benson, Dennis Lauscha, that when we have a chance to put the pedal to the metal and build a championship team and really sustain our culture in the way the Saints have, I believe there's a willingness to do that, but it's about picking your spots. We're not going to be a team that routinely pays into the tax. And I think if you look at the league right now, there's probably 7 teams that I'll call the superpowers in terms of their ability to spend money. There's a great deal of stratification in the NBA right now between the haves and the have-nots financially. This team is going to participate in a way that they can compete for championships. We got a long, long way to go to do that. But I can tell you absolutely, Andrew, if we get to the point where that's what we need to do to finish this off, ownership's willing to do that.
Hey, Griff, this was Brandon's first season as a max player since you guys gave him that contract. Zion obviously came on into, you got to play next to Zion. You got to see them together for a lot of minutes. What did you feel about Brandon's development this season? Where did you feel about his performance? And how would you kind of grade him overall?
Yeah, so I think Brandon had a fantastic season. I think his points, rebounds, and assists were almost identical to last year. Again, the season starting as quickly as it did changed a lot of what people would have done from an off-season programming standpoint. COVID being something that was happening made it very difficult for players to work out the same way they would in the off-season. And as I said, I felt like last year's bubble to now was all one long season. What excites me the most about Brandon is his desire to start to grow his leadership muscles a little bit. And we're going to need Zion to do the same. It's one thing to be really good offensively. It's another thing to hold your teammates accountable. And in order to hold your teammates accountable, both of those players are going to have to become much more focal to our defensive game planning as well. And I think you're going to see that happen. I think you're going to see them evolve in that way because young players often do. I think what happens quite often with young players as talented as Brandon is it becomes first for you when you get drafted an exhibition of your talent. And what we need to do now is flip the switch to competing in every moment. And I think we have young guys that are about the right things. And I know for certain Brandon is going to take a leadership mantle here and be the one who gets everyone together in the offseason and leads workouts and does the type of things that really high character best players do because that's who he is. As a human, we could not have a better player in that position.
Griff, I have a question and a follow-up, so I don't want to forget the follow-up eventually, but I'll just start with the main question. I think earlier this year, Stan said, faith is belief in the unknown because you haven't seen it yet. As far as your young team, do you do anything differently from the top down to make sure that nobody loses faith since it's still kind of belief in the unknown right now, so to say?
Yeah, I think Stan did a very good job throughout the season of explaining to guys, look, we're really close. And we were very, very close. And in those games that we lost and those leads that we blew, we were right there at the end of those games. And the reason we didn't win those games is we just have not evolved enough as young players and as a young team to the point where we make winning basketball plays regularly. But they know how talented they are. Our team could smell how close we were. And before all of the injuries, I think our team really believed we were going to achieve what we wanted to, which was to go into the postseason and be a threat to continue in the postseason. Our team knows we're close. And I think when you speak to many of them, Brandon and Zion included, I think you'll see that there's a great deal of confidence in themselves.
And my follow-up is because I work at an NBC affiliate here, and the Olympics are important to us. Will Zion and Brandon, with their injuries, be allowed to try out for Team USA? How do you feel about that, and how will you handle that situation this summer with them potentially having the opportunity to try out and maybe represent the country?
Yeah, Fletcher, that's a great question. You don't give them permission to try out for Team USA. If Team USA calls, you're honored to participate. We'll have to deal with that as it comes along in terms of when the call comes and where they are relative to their injuries. But we don't have anything to do with giving them permission. We wholeheartedly support their participation in Team USA.
Hey, I heard you we're talking on the broadcast a little bit just about the success you guys had in February and March playing through Zion, as a ball handler on the perimeter. Mentioned, leaning into that. Just why do you feel like that is the right thing to do to continue leaning into that?
Well, one thing about Zion, I think that's remarkable, and as a fan of this team would excite me a great deal. When Zion came back from his initial knee injury, he was asked to play almost exclusively in the post, and he was historically efficient as a post-up player, doing what he enjoyed the least. And then when Stan really leaned into Point Zion, something that when we interviewed coaches, we interviewed 9 coaches, and Stan was the only one who saw Point Zion in Zion. He was the one who wanted to build to that. And when he really opened up and leaned into it, I think you saw that Zion was historically efficient in that role. So this is a player who's capable of almost anything on a basketball court. And I think what excites us the most, Christian, as we're building to this, is that he's also a very complicated player to build to because he is literally one of one. There is nobody that has his combination of assets. And frankly, the way his game lends itself to team building is really more of that as a point guard. And it's highly unusual to have a point guard that's that big. So I think what we're excited about is he's one of one. And that's going to be a real challenge for us to build to, and it's something that we're learning on the fly. He's a 20-year-old player who is an all-star. And when he was healthy and we were leaning into Point Zion, I think you saw a player who's already a top 10 player in this league. And what we need to do is have everybody be top 10 in their ability to impact winning. And that's the next step in the evolution for us.
Yeah, you guys obviously have a big decision to make with the restricted free agency with Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. I guess how do you guys approach those negotiations, and how do you view their fit with that core you were talking about building?
Well, I think, first of all, Lonzo and Josh have clearly shown that they can be very important focal points on a team that goes into the playoffs. I think they are playoff caliber rotational pieces for sure. What we need to do here is build championship caliber teams and do it in a sustainable way. So our approach to going into the offseason this year is the same as every offseason. We need to sustain success and continue to add pieces that can be part of a championship caliber rotation. And we feel very, very strongly about both of those players, and we hope they feel the same about us.
If you mentioned the timeline of how condensed everything was last year, how much more clarity, I guess, do you feel like you have this time around as far as you've seen Zion for a lot more games, you've seen Brandon and Zion play together a lot more. Do you feel like, comparatively to where you were entering, last offseason, there's a significant jump?
Yeah, it's a great question, Scott. I think we have a great deal more clarity. I think we understand far more, certainly, about both players than we could have. And again, I can't explain enough or express enough, clearly enough, rather, how incredible it is to have 2 all-stars on the same team that are under the age of 23. What we've learned is significant. At the same time, I will tell you that we have to be really careful not to read too much into the last year and a half. These were extraordinarily trying times for everyone. What they were needing to do in terms of testing every day, the mental fatigue and the drain that this season and a half were, is really hard to express to someone who didn't live in these walls every day. It was unnatural. In my 27 years in the league, I've never seen anything like this in terms of the mental daily fatigue. And so I don't want to read too much into it, Scott. I don't want to say that we feel like we have ultimate clarity, because we probably don't. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of what we saw when we were really good and what we saw when we were incapable of closing games. The truth of who we are is probably in the middle. And I think we need to be very mindful of that. While we're excited about what we learned, while we're excited about the young developing players on our roster, Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jackson Hayes, their growth and development, very exciting. We also have to be mindful of the fact that Nickeil didn't get to play with the starting unit all that much before the injuries happened. And he was a totally different player in that setting than he was at the end of the year. When you're being asked to carry the burden of a team that doesn't have enough scoring on the court like Eric Bledsoe had to, he really seamlessly led that group in a way that helped us compete very deep into this season, even with all the injuries, because Eric is capable of being focal and organizing everyone else. And those young players need an organizer to make the game easier for them, so they play to their strengths and hide more of their deficiencies. So one thing that we didn't really get in this situation was to see the pieces fit in a way that made sense. And that's something that A, we have to address, but B, we're going to have to be patient with and watch happen as well.
Hi, David. A lot was said about wanting to establish a culture before the start of this season. Are you happy with the progress made in this area? And could you identify maybe like one or two of your favorite developments?
Yeah, so I would tell you I'm very happy about where we're heading culturally. For starters, our locker room really cares about each other, and we are building a family here. I think when anybody in basically all of America watched the Saints win the Super Bowl and turn this city into something that really had a life force to it and an energy that was different, but it was all wrought from the culture of the Saints, that's what we're trying to build. We want to bring energy to the city. We want to feed in a symbiotic way off of our fan base, and that requires that we continue to build this culture. And a big part of that is this is bigger than basketball, and you're more than a basketball player. You have to be a part of our community, and you have to live and love New Orleans. And I think guys are excited about the opportunity to do that. I couldn't be prouder of what Swin Cash and Ramon Sessions have done with the off-the-court player development. I think you've seen some incredible strides from the young men that these people are becoming, and that's very largely attributable to them and attributable to the strength of character of this group of people. We've got very, very high character quality people here, and they care about one another and being family. And so to that extent, this has been successful. Our results are not, but that really bodes well for our future.
Hey, Griff, I just wanted to kind of, end on an injury update. We saw Jackson go down last night. Is everything okay with him? And then do you expect any of these other injuries? Are they all, you think they're all to their end, or anything could linger and hold guys out for anything you guys do?
Well, I'll start with the last question. We have no reason to believe that we'll have anybody not ready to start next season 100%. The first question you asked relative to Jackson, we're doing exit physicals now, and we will be for the next couple days. So if there's more to say on that, we will. Currently, we believe he's going to be fine and come out of it fairly unscathed, but we'll find out. There's more tests to come.
All right, thanks, Griff. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.